Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today we discuss, is Kevin Durant in the NBA GOAT conversation? Why are we talking about this? Well, a few days ago, Kevin Durant had some very interesting quotes talking about why he isn't in the NBA GOAT conversation and why he thinks he actually should be in the NBA GOAT conversation. So we'll go ahead and show you this article here. This article here is in CBS Sports. The title of it is Kevin Durant believes he should be in the NBA GOAT conversation. Why shouldn't I be in that? So we'll go on here and read the full quote here. Here's basically a list of Kevin Durant's accomplishments in this first paragraph. He's won an MVP, 3-time Olympic champion, 4-time scoring champ, 2-time NBA champion, will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best players in his generation. The original quote, two guys, did come from the Arizona Republic's Dwayne Rankin. So we'll go ahead and read this actual quote here from KD. Because I went to the Warriors, Durant told Rankin, why shouldn't I be in that? That's the question you should ask. Why not? What haven't I done? That is a very interesting quote there from Kevin Durant. I kind of want to talk about, kind of what I think the deeper meaning of Kevin Durant's quote is here, because I do think there is a little bit of a deeper meaning of what he actually, is saying here. I think Kevin Durant's smart enough to know that if you're just comparing accolades of guys like MJ, LeBron, maybe Kareem, like the amount of rings, MVPs that those guys have, KD, I think, is smart enough to know, like, hey, from that kind of resume standpoint, like, I don't stack up. And I'm not going to stack up when my career is over. With that being said, though, I do think Kevin Durant's like, well, I, did achieve all of that stuff, didn't have the longevity of it. And I think a lot of times too, when you have the GOAT debate too, guys, I think there's two kind of ways that people usually have this debate and have this discussion. One of those ways is kind of what I was just mentioning earlier. It's the accolades. It's how many rings did you have? How many finals MVPs did you have? All NBA teams, regular season MVPs, your stats, kind of that kind of stuff, that accolades, stacking up the accolades, stacking up the stats, that kind of stuff. There is another way that I think a lot of people, I think more players think this way, and guys that actually played the game think this way, just from listening to like different podcasts and interviews that these guys have done over the years. I think a lot of them think like, okay, just the GOAT conversation isn't necessarily all of the accolades. They're important. And if you have that stuff, it validates you to a degree. But I think a lot of players think that like actually how they measure a lot of this stuff is like you're just pure, basketball skill set and athletic ability. And just like I think there might be part of Kevin Durant that's thinking like, okay, I have achieved all of those things that those guys have achieved. But if you look at my offensive skill set, I'm one of the most unstoppable offensive players ever. I was the best player on, you could say, the greatest team ever, and I won Finals MVPs. We went 16-1 in an entire NBA playoffs. Went on an absolute tear. I could play both ends. I could guard multiple positions. I can play multiple positions on offense. If you have me in like a draft, if you're drafting like all-time starting fives, a lot of people want to put Kevin Durant in that starting five. So I think there's something, to that part of it where maybe Kevin Durant's saying something like that. Now, to the larger point of what I think Kevin Durant is saying in this quote, Kevin Durant very much, I think, in a way, whether he meant to or not, has kind of compared himself to LeBron James his entire career. At one time, he obviously looked up to him. He was an idol. LeBron James was an idol of his. And I think he also has very much been comparing himself to LeBron James his entire career. And I think he's tried to follow, in a lot of ways, the same kind of career path that LeBron went on. Because if you look at Kevin Durant here, if you look at just his career, spends time in Oklahoma City, leaves to go to a team that's already won a title, guys with championship experience, go there. All right, you get your titles there, then you go on to your next spot, and then you're the actual guy in this next place. Obviously, that didn't work out well for Kevin Durant, but it's very kind of like, it mirrors LeBron's career, where LeBron was at Cleveland, and then he goes to Miami, and then he goes back to Cleveland, and now he's at the Lakers. And I think Kevin Durant very much compares himself to LeBron James. And I think this is what Kevin Durant, truly thinks here. And I think this is kind of what he's saying. It's what he's saying in the quote without actually saying it. He's saying that, like, you guys, a lot of people think LeBron is the GOAT or he's in that conversation. And a lot of people like to have that conversation with him. And he's always brought up in that. But I went head to head against LeBron James 2 times in the NBA finals back to back years, 17 and 18. And I was the best player in that series. I averaged 30 over him. I outplayed LeBron James in those finals, and my team beat his team in the course of 2 NBA finals, 8 games to 1. And I was the best player in that series against the guy that everyone thinks is the GOAT conversation. And because of that, if I was able to just destroy him and outplay him on the biggest stage in basketball, why shouldn't I be in that conversation? So when you kind of look at it from that perspective, I think that is how Kevin Durant thinks of it. Now, is that how everybody that is an NBA fan thinks of it? No. I think most NBA fans think about it how I felt about it, which is basically when Kevin Durant joined the Warriors, it was kind of like, what? He's not actually doing this, is he? Wait, is this legal? What's going on? Like, Kevin Durant made the NBA unfair for a few years. He made the NBA unfair for a few years where it was just like people were having, like, again, that Warriors team won 73 games. That was not a fluke, guys. They won like 67 games, I think, the year before. They were this absolute force, and people were having trouble stopping the Warriors without Kevin Durant. And it's like, oh my God, they're basically replacing Harrison Barnes with Kevin Durant, but they have to give up a little bit of their bench depth to do so. And you know what? Credit to Kevin Durant, credit to the Warriors. I don't think those titles deserve to have any asterisks on them, but because, like, hey, he went onto those teams, he became the best player on those teams, and he was the best player on a team that you could consider, was one of the greatest teams ever assembled for a single season. You could say that. Now, I'm not going to have that debate right now, whether you think it's like one of the Bulls teams, one of the Lakers teams, one of the Celtics teams. You can have that debate. We're not going to have that here today. But wherever you rank it, the Warriors have to be in that top 5 kind of conversation with that. So Kevin Durant saying like, oh, well, like, the fact that I was the best player on one of these, greatest teams ever, like, that has to put me in that conversation. With that being said, though, and the other part of this quote, and this is a thing that, like, Kevin Durant will have like a weird quote about this. It seems like every like 9 or 12 months, and it's about his time in Golden State. He says there, people won't put me in that conversation because I went to Golden State. I think he's right about that. And I think people are right not to have him in that conversation because of that. Because of everything we just said, where he made the NBA unfair. And it's like, we've never seen, a time where Kevin Durant has to really sweat in those NBA playoffs. And we haven't really seen it where he gets to go and do it on his own. And in a way, I think Kevin Durant, if he could do it all over again, I legitimately think, I have this book behind my left shoulder here, guys. It's a biography about Kevin Durant. And I'm trusting, if you read a lot of that, it's hard to not like Kevin Durant afterwards. Just going through all the stuff he did, had to go through growing up, things that that he did early on in Oklahoma City. I legitimately think when he joined the Warriors, I don't think he went there to like, hey, I'm going to go here and like we're going to dominate and win titles. I think he went because he was like, I really like the style that they play from a basketball perspective, and playing with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson seems like just a very fun style to play. I really think that's what it was. I don't think it was any sort of like malice thing where he's like, oh, I'm going to go here and dominate and I'm just going to get my rings and it's going to be like the same thing. I really think that was his thought process of it. With that being said, though, if people in his inner circle at that time were basically telling him like, hey, yeah, no, dude, like, you going to Golden State, it's the same thing as LeBron going to Miami. Same thing as LeBron going to Miami. You go there, you win your titles. Again, mirroring his career to LeBron, comparing himself to LeBron. He was in the NBA when he saw LeBron turn into this villain when he joins Miami. And then the second year, they finally win the title. They win the Spurs title the next year. All of a sudden, LeBron is very much celebrated. Everyone is, praising LeBron, calling him the best. He's winning MVPs. And I think Kevin Durant saw that and he's like, oh, well, even if I get a little bit of backlash when I win that title, or excuse me, when I go to Golden State, when I eventually win the titles at Golden State, then all of that talk will disappear. All of that talk will disappear. Well, the only problem is Kevin Durant um, leaves, wins those titles, and the talk really didn't disappear. People were still all around the NBA saying, like, well, not a lot of people. Well, I'd say it became more of like a like there was still a good contingent of people when Kevin Durant was winning those titles that were saying like, yeah, Kevin Durant won those titles, but LeBron's still the best player in the league. Yeah, Kevin Durant won those titles, but LeBron's still better. Kevin Durant has like all the awesome teammates, and and I think there was still that kind of contingent. And I don't think he ever kind of got the love that he thought he was going to get, and I think that's why he ultimately, obviously the Draymond thing, that skirmish, if you want to call it, incident, where Draymond called him a B word, and I think that was definitely kind of a point that pushed Kevin Durant away. But I also think too, he leaves, kind of similar to LeBron going to Cleveland, back to Cleveland thing, goes and teams up with Kyrie Irving. Hold on, I have to drink your water. And I think part of it was like, hey, if I go, I know I'm good enough to win a title on my own, where I'm the best player, and when I don't have Steph Curry. And the closest he got was the foot on the line, where he had that foot on the line against the Milwaukee Bucks, where they could have won that series and potentially gone to the finals and beat Phoenix. I still don't think that's like an absolute gimme that they beat Phoenix in that series, because that Phoenix team was really good. But I think Kevin Durant kind of knows in his heart, even if he were to win a title this stage in his career at Phoenix, he's still not going to get that validation that he would get if he won one in Brooklyn, or if he, either went to a different place than Golden State and won a title, or if he won one in Oklahoma City. He's still not going to get that credit. And I think that's something that really bothers him. And part of me wonders if you could like basically give Kevin Durant some truth serum, and you would ask him like, hey, dude, would you do your career over again? And, not even your career, but that summer of 16, would you do it differently? Would you pick a different team? Would you maybe say, hey, I'm going to stay in Oklahoma City for 1 year? Maybe you'd be kind of try and be, a gangster a little bit and go to Oklahoma City and be like, hey, I really don't like Russell Westbrook. Why don't you trade him? And then you can keep me. I'll sign a max extension here if you get rid of Westbrook. Something like that. Maybe he's like, all right, screw it. I'll try and go out to Washington, or I'll go to the Lakers, or I'll go to um, Boston or something like that. I wonder if he would do it differently. That's something I very much. Now, I don't know if he thinks that way, but it is. I don't think it's a coincidence too. Part of the reason too people keep talking about his time in Golden State is also part of the reason Kevin Durant also just keeps bringing it up all the time. Like, that was unprompted, of like talking about Golden State. He brought it up. So there you have it, guys. Those are basically my thoughts on this whole Kevin Durant quotes thing. I don't think he was seriously talking about, hey, look at my accomplishments compared to all these other guys. I think he was either talking about like, hey, I know I'm one of the greatest players of all time, and if you're telling me I'm on the same court with any one of these guys, I go toe to toe with them, I think I can win, because I have that much confidence in a basketball player. I think he was talking about a little bit of his thing with LeBron too, where he's like, hey, I beat this guy head to head twice. But there you have it, man. That's going to do it for this video today. If you like this video, please hit that like button. If you like content like this, hit that subscribe button. We've been doing this podcast now for over 4 years. I've only, though, started posting stuff on YouTube the past like 2 months. So if you like content like this, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out in the algorithm. It's the only way for us to grow. So very, very, very much appreciate that. Go ahead and explore the Sports Detective Podcast YouTube channel if you want to kind of get a lot more similar kind of like, clips about this. We talk basketball, NBA, college, NFL, college football, all of that kind of stuff. A few sports media stories too. So yeah, make sure you check that stuff out. Hit subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.